stride. So he put the camera back into its box, out of reach on his desk, and got on with some work. Pre-pandemic, he'd gone into the office in town 5 days a week, but that had stopped. He was a surveyor by trade, a fully paid-up member of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. The office had been closed during the pandemic, and they'd all work from home with the obligatory Zoom calls. Now, they only went in for a meeting every so often. His boss hadn't renewed the lease on the premises in town, and so instead they went to an office that was a large extension built onto the side of his house. Alfie worked on some two-dimensional drawings while thinking of the camera and the delights it would shortly present. He worked for nearly an hour, then closed the screen and pulled the box over. He took out the instructions. It seemed straightforward, but best to test it in here first, before taking it into the guest room. He read the instructions again. These cameras are good at identifying burglars and uncovering partner infidelity, it said. That wouldn't be a problem here, he thought. Not with Jenny. She would never do anything like that. You can connect your CCTV security camera directly to your smartphone with the use of a mobile app. The app. That was the first thing to do. He picked up his phone and downloaded the app. After a bit of fiddling, the room suddenly came into view on his phone screen. He turned the clock camera around and was surprised by his expression. He looked gruffer and older than he usually did. He gave a little wave. Then, tucking his phone into his pocket, he picked up the clock and carefully carried it down one flight of stairs to the guest bedroom, on the first floor. His wife ran their roomyspace.com. He hadn't got involved until now. She had been assigned a host from the company to help out at the start. When Jenny had first suggested the idea a year ago, he'd been against it, and so had his sons, vehemently. "I'm not having strangers in my house," he'd said, and the boys had said, "No way." But when he'd discovered they could charge £90 a night for bed and breakfast, that rather changed things. He'd agreed to try it, and so had his sons, with the promise of getting more pocket money. Jenny did it all, though. She left the guests' breakfast, and all they had to do was boil the kettle for coffee or tea. He kept an eye on them, however, and now he'd be able to do so even more. This camera would strengthen his house security, as it said on the box, as well as spicing up his sex life. Most of the guests had only stayed 1 or 2 nights, and had left by 10:30 the following morning. One couple had stayed 5 nights, and they were the ones who had given him this idea. The attic room was his study, and his wife's bedroom was on the first floor, next to the roomy space. They'd heard the couple making love every night, although it was more than that. It had sounded like an orgy. They'd lain awake listening to them banging and groaning until after 2 a.m, so much so that Jenny didn't believe they were married, or at least not to each other, and thought they must be having an affair. He couldn't disagree. They'd listened. Then Jenny had felt like making love and made the first move. It was passionate, like nothing he'd experienced in a long time. The roomy space had been Gregory's room, and he'd had to be coerced into sharing Mike's room. From where they now slept, they couldn't hear all the fuss coming from the roomy space. Alfie had said his study was free if one of them wanted to sit in there to do their homework. So far, neither of them had. He left the door open as he went into the guest room. No one was due back yet, and as far as he knew, the couple renting the room wouldn't be arriving until this evening, after Jenny was home. The room looked like many of the ones that appeared on roomyspace.com, with a double bed, a wardrobe, 2 bedside cabinets and a chair. Alfie and Jenny had to share their bathroom, which was definitely a drawback. The bed linen was supposed to be washed after every visit, but sometimes they missed a night if they had a lot of couples arriving and leaving after one night. No one had complained yet. Alfie went over to the existing clock and removed it from where it sat on the bedside cabinet. He looked at it and then positioned the new one exactly where the old one had been. Perfect. Even if you looked at it very closely, there wasn't much difference. All you could see was a small additional embedded circle, just to the left of the clock face where the camera was, no bigger than 0.5 centimetre. It blended in very well.